We have another NHL trade to discuss today, and it once again involves a goaltender. We'll discuss the details coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have another NHL trade to discuss today. Another NHL goaltender finds himself on the move here. This is kind of a depth move, or I guess you could kind of call Alex Stalock a minor league goaltender, but really for the most part, he has been a really solid NHL backup, and I think there's a decent chance he could do that again, but we'll have to see how he recovers. But for right now, the Edmonton Oilers have traded Alex Stalock to the San Jose Sharks for future considerations. A lot of times, future considerations either becomes nothing or a late round pick or something to that effect. So we'll see if the Oilers ever get a return. Not really something they're overly concerned about at this point. Alex Stalock is in the final year of his contract. He had signed a 3-year deal back with Minnesota for $750K a year. So obviously he took the term. I'm not so much concerned about the money, getting the insurance. At the time, it was clear as day that the Minnesota Wild were preparing for the expansion draft. Of course, at that point, Stalock was more expected to be like a number 2. They knew they had Kakinen coming up, so it was more of a protective way to kind of make sure that Stalock could end up being the guy that they likely expose. Of course, things changed a bit before we got there, but I think that was kind of the intent when the contract was first signed. Of course, he's going back to San Jose where it all began. He was drafted by the Sharks, had some good solid years there. Like I said, there was probably, you could look through his stat sheet from his career, and there's probably at least 3 or 4 years where he was a really solid NHL backup. There's been times where he didn't play a lot. This is the case of a second time now he's been part of an NHL franchise in Canada, but not appeared in an NHL game. Of course, he originally was traded from the Sharks to the Maple Leafs in the James Reimer trade back when the Leafs were kind of tearing things down. He never played for the Maple Leafs at the NHL level. He played a few games for the Marlies and then moved on in the offseason. And then, of course, now he has been a part of the Oilers organization after being claimed on waivers. But then, of course, only played a few games recently in Bakersfield. We know that Alex Stalock encountered some long-term health implications after being tested positive for COVID. He did have, I believe it was a heart issue that was believed to have been connected. But he obviously is able to resume his career. He's been playing in the AHL for Bakersfield. His stats don't look phenomenal for the 3 or 4 games he was in the net down there. But still, if he can regain his form, he's just an insurance piece. The Sharks right now obviously are not necessarily going to be a team that really at this point is likely heading for the playoffs. We know that. But he could end up finishing up the year in San Jose. Maybe they want to see how he does and consider re-signing him when it comes to Edmonton. And doesn't look as though we're going to see a significant goalie trade. I know I was going to make a joke off the top saying, been saying for weeks here and months that the Oilers are making a goalie trade. Well, here you have it. But this is not what we originally thought, although there's been a lot of times lately where Koskinen has looked better. And we've heard NHL insiders say that the Oilers are not expected to be big-time players in the goalie market ahead of the deadline. So if they're going to go into the playoffs with Koskinen and Smith as their duo, with Stuart Skinner kind of being their insurance piece, then they'll take their chances and go with that. But they also have a few other goalies down on the minors, including Skinner and Rodrigue, and they have another prospect goalie down there as well. So they need to have some playing time for those guys. So it didn't really make sense to keep Stalock around anymore once they knew he could be obviously activated from LTIR and get a few games in for conditioning, and then kind of get him off to another team where he can get some playing time. So he'll likely start with the Barracuda. Obviously right now the Sharks do have Reimer and Adin Hill as their tandem. Of course, Adin Hill is currently injured, so maybe he'll get a chance to go to the Sharks in a backup role to Reimer while Adin Hill is out. That might be a possibility as well, because they could certainly have a bit of a short-term need, at least there. Not much of a contract, no big long-term commitment, and we'll see what the future holds if Stalock will resume playing into next year or not. But certainly, I think at this point, he's had a pretty solid career, mostly during his time with the Sharks and the Minnesota Wild. And he said he's part of the Oilers and Leafs organization, but never played an NHL game for them. So let me know your thoughts on this trade. Nothing too significant, but there could be some potential implications for the Sharks here down the road. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.